he's a war hero. I guess I am too.
Yep.
Nobody cares, but
Donald Trump is a self-aggrandizing, self-promoter, a liar, a conspiracy theorist, a credibly accused abuser, sexual abuser of women and children. There's a lot of things that Donald Trump is. There is one thing that Donald Trump is not, and that's a war hero. Donald Trump not only did not serve in the military for a single second, Donald Trump avoided military service. Donald Trump's number was called, and he evaded the draft. He dodged the draft on multiple occasions while whining about his bone spurs, a condition I have had for many, many, many years, and it did not prevent me from serving in the United States Marine Corps. This is an X-ray here from the VA of me that shows just how severe. This is why they call them bone spurs, because it looks like, on me especially, a pair of cowboy spurs like from a movie, or I guess cowboys probably actually wear spurs on certain occasions. I don't know, not a cowboy or a war hero. And you might be asking, yeah, we know this about Donald Trump. We know he's a coward. We know he's a physical weakling. We know he's a dum-dum. But why would you have to press us on the fact that he's not a war hero? He's never claimed he's a war hero. Until yesterday. It is so ridiculous, this particular reality we live in right now, when we have the President of the United States of America going on Mark Levin's show, a raging Islamophobe and bigot, Mark Levin. And Donald Trump self-describes as a war hero. That he, while he self-promotes and self-aggrandizes, I got the hostages released, the Israeli hostages. We would have no hostages. You couldn't have got it done. Nobody could have got it done. I got it done. And I'm a war hero. It's almost unbelievable. Just watch this like minute or so of this, and then we'll address some of the wild claims and also drill down a little further on what a sickening, physical, coward, and weakling non-hero in any respect that Donald Trump is.
First of all, they weren't going to give back any hostages. I'm the one that got all the hostages back. By the way, Steve Witkoff does a great job. It's, a very hard job, but I used him because he's a very wonderful person that everybody likes, and he's a good deal maker, and he's done a great job. But, these people also change their mind. So what happened is we worked hard. We got all these hostages back. I've had so many letters from parents and from the kids themselves and the people that got out. But I got them back, Mark. You wouldn't have even had any. You wouldn't have gotten any. And none of these people would have been back. But I got them back, worked with your friend Bibi. He's a good man. He's in there fighting. He's fighting. They're trying to put him in jail on top of everything else. How about that? He's nuts. He's a war hero. Because we work together. He's a war hero. I guess I am too. Yep. Nobody cares, but I am too. I mean, I sent those planes. 22 years, the pilots came. I rewarded them. I brought them all to the Oval Office.
It is all about I, me with Donald Trump. Very rarely does he say we or us or even just the United States. He needs credit for everything. Some of this is rooted, this is armchair psychology. I don't have any training or expertise in psychology. This seems to me to be rooted in childhood inadequacies. I've said it many times that Donald Trump either was hugged too much or not hugged enough as a child. Maybe he was hugged too much by his mother and not enough by his father. I don't know. Something's going on there, though. Something is going on with a man who is so not normal, who is so atypical, to put it about as mildly and nicely as we can, that he would call himself a war hero when it seems self-evident that one would have to be in war to be a hero in that venue, right? Look, Donald Trump didn't serve a minute in military uniform in service to his country, ever, never. How could he be a war hero? I served in the United States Marine Corps in uniform on active duty for many years, and I'm not a hero in any sense. I'm not a war hero. How could Donald Trump be one? I'm the one that got all the hostages back. They weren't going to give any hostages back. I'm the one who did it. But I got them back. But you wouldn't have even had any. You wouldn't have got any back. He tells Mark Levin. What? But I got them back, he continues. And then whines about the cases, the civil and criminal cases, I believe criminal, but maybe it's just civil cases, against Benjamin Netanyahu for his rampant corruption. He is a Trump version of Donald Trump. This is why, for me, it's so perplexing that there's so many, even Democrats, who want to get their pictures taken with Benjamin Netanyahu, who is just a Trump in Israel. He's a conservative. He's a Republican, if there was a Republican Party in Israel. He's not king of the Jews. He doesn't represent Judaism. He's a political figure, a conservative one, a corrupt one, who puts his offspring in different places of power and influence, just like Donald Trump. He's a war criminal, just like Donald Trump. He is not a war hero. And they're trying to put him in jail on top of everything else. How about that? He's a war hero because we work together. He's a war hero. I guess I am too. I guess, by extension, I'm a war hero because I, as commander-in-chief of the armed forces, sent some planes to go drop some bombs. That makes me a war hero. I ordered a pizza one time. It doesn't make me a pizza chef. Listen, here's the thing that really bothers me, being, decades and decades ago, a former Republican, is that this party claims to revere military service, heroism, all of these jingoistic, nonsense, meaningless terms to Republicans, because they're patriots. They would be appalled by this if they really cared about the sanctity of heroism, of military service. They would say, whoa, let's slow your roll, Donald Trump. You're not a war hero. But they can't do that because he's actually maligned literal war heroes. John McCain, for one. All of the suckers and losers who lost their lives in combat, in war, in battle, fighting for American freedom, or according to Republicans, American exceptionalism. They can't call Donald Trump out because they themselves are just quivering cowards, sucking their thumbs under their desks, hiding on the off chance that Donald Trump might dispatch MAGA against them. Look, we've heard from many Republican politicians that say, yeah, my colleagues, they agree, they're afraid. There have been multiple Republican politicians that say people are afraid for their family's safety if they go against Donald Trump because he is a king-like cult figure in Republican circles. Among MAGA, he is it. There will be no talk. You never heard about woke as a pejorative until Donald Trump started using it as a slander. Then all of a sudden, every Republican, it's on the tip of their tongue and the top of their lips. Donald Trump, you don't hear anything about how glorious tariffs are until Donald Trump starts talking about the idea. And once the dear leader says it, they must follow suit. Even in this particular clip, you hear Mark Levin, oh, yep, oh, yeah, we know, yep, you are. Well, how did it go? He's a war hero. I guess I am too, Mark Levin says, yep. Well, I hate to break it to you, Mark Levin. I hate to break it to you, Donald Trump. The answer is an emphatic nope. You are not a war hero. You're not an anything hero. You are a deceiver and a destroyer of American democracy, of American respect on a global stage. The little respect we had is just gone now. And now we have a coward who claims to be a war hero while never having served in the military. Kind of seems like a requisite, does it not? You're just an alarmist. Why are you talking? Donald Trump's not a racist. You've never seen him defend slavery. You've never seen him chastise museums for talking about how bad slavery is until now. We know Donald Trump's understanding of history or even just the world is askew. It is incorrect from his constant year. He explains the Spanish flu by the wrong year over and over and over and over during the pandemic. He says windmills when he means wind turbines, that they cause cancer and they're killing whales and birds and fish and whatever. His handling of COVID itself, remember the bleach? Shining light up into your asshole was supposed to cure the virus. He doesn't understand how tariffs work when it's his seminal policy economically. He has no fundamental understanding of tariffs. He blames Ukraine for being invaded by a foreign hostile neighbor. What are we doing here? He claims his uncle was a teacher of the Unabomber when he didn't teach at the same school that the Unabomber went to. He claims he invented the word groceries. He claims that the 2020 election was stolen when he just lost in grand fashion by more than 7 million votes to Joe Biden. He claims it was a perfect phone call that caused him to get impeached, even though we heard from the transcript, the summary transcript, that it was a quid pro quo. He tried to extort a foreign leader. And then we witnessed the predication for the second impeachment, that he tried to overthrow the United States government in order to stay in power and incited an insurrection against the country on January 6, 2021. All of these things, Donald Trump has a wildly opposite view about what actually took place. So to take Donald Trump's view of history and make that the reality that we all share seems to be a fool's errand. Which leads us to what Donald Trump posted yesterday on Truth Social. The museums throughout Washington, but all over the country, are essentially the last remaining segment of woke. The Smithsonian is out of control, he says, where everything discussed is how horrible our country with a capital C is. He can't even write in his native tongue correctly. He can't even properly capitalize or use punctuation or write the English language, his native language, his only language. How are we supposed to take his opinion on what is and what is not historical or what is ahistorical? Where everything discussed is how horrible our country is, how bad slavery was, and how unaccomplished the downtrodden have been. Nothing about success, nothing about brightness, nothing about the future. We are not going to allow this to happen. I have instructed my attorneys to go through the museums with a capital M and start the exact same process that has been done with colleges and universities where tremendous progress has been made. This country with a capital C cannot be woke because woke is broke. We have the hottest, all caps, in quotes, so you know it's important, the hottest country with a capital C in the world with a capital W. And we want people to talk about it, including our museums. Let's save the pro-slavery view of Donald Trump for a moment. But let's talk about what the fundamental role of a museum is. You know, when you go into a museum and you see dinosaur bones, history. When you go to the portrait gallery here in the United States Capitol, just down the street here, you see portraits of historical figures. You don't see pictures or portraits of future people. He wants us to talk about the future. You don't see dinosaur bones from the future. That's what a museum is, Donald Trump. That's how it works. It's a celebration and a recording of our history. But Donald Trump, he's nothing about success, nothing about brightness. All they want to do is talk about how bad slavery was. Does Donald Trump not think that slavery was a scourge or a scourge, as he would pronounce it, on our nation? Does he not think that it was a murderous endeavor, a torturous endeavor, an institution, as it's referred, based in rape and torture and murder, oppression? And even after slavery was abolished, black people in America were forced through the indignities of oppression under color of law. It wasn't even just Jim Crow. It was convict leasing, poll taxes, literacy tests, no protections on the job, no protections from the thousands of lynchings that took place in this country at the hands of people just like Donald Trump, who wanted to, let's talk about how great America is. Let's not focus on anything negative that happened whatsoever. Let's not talk about how bad slavery was. What about all the good things that happened during slavery? Lots of white people got famously filthy fucking rich from owning human beings as property. Why are we not talking about the wealth that was generated during that time? Why are museums not focusing on that? This seems like something that some people owe some other people apology for, that, oh, you're just an alarmist. Why are you talking? Donald Trump's not a racist. Donald Trump's not a white supremacist. What do you mean? You've never seen him defend slavery. You've never seen him chastise museums for talking about how bad slavery is until now. Not an alarmist. Wasn't an alarmist, will continue to not be an alarmist, realist, telling the truth about Donald Trump's ahistorical view of the United States. So ahistorical, in fact, that I didn't even cover this last week. There's so much going on that I didn't even cover this. He ordered the Smithsonian to not include his impeachments in their impeachment display in the Smithsonian Museum. Remember this headline? You may have seen it last week. Smithsonian removes Trump from impeachment exhibit in American History Museum. The Smithsonian said it restored the display to an earlier version, which notes that, quote, only 3 presidents have seriously faced removal. Those presidents being Richard Nixon, Bill Clinton, and Andrew Johnson. Not Donald Trump. Richard Nixon wasn't even actually impeached, by the way. He resigned before he was impeached. The only 3 presidents that have been impeached, all justifiably, I believe, Andrew Johnson, Bill Clinton, and Donald Trump, part 1 and duh. The Smithsonian's National Museum of American History in July removed references to President Donald Trump's 2 impeachments from an exhibit display. A person familiar with the exhibit plans, who was not authorized to discuss them publicly, said the change came about as part of a content review that the Smithsonian agreed to undertake following pressure from the White House to remove an art museum director. After the story published, the Smithsonian said in a statement that a future and updated exhibit will include all the impeachments. But why take them down? A temporary label including content about Donald Trump's impeachment had been on display since September 2021 at the Washington Museum. A Smithsonian spokesperson told the Washington Post, adding that it was intended to be a short-term addition to address current events. Current events? It's history. Donald Trump was impeached twice years ago. It's history. It's not current events. And they're bending the knee. They're bending the knee to a man who doesn't want them to talk about how bad slavery was, which in itself, as an extension of the logic, when you just look at it, means that he must have thought it was okay or good or not that bad. Why are we talking about slavery when it's a fundamental aspect of our history, the design of our country, the founding of our country? We fought a civil war where hundreds of thousands of people died to abolish the institution of slavery. And Donald Trump is now beside himself. Why are museums not talking about the future? Apparently, Donald Trump wants the National History Museum to be like have a Jetsons exhibit with flying cars. Donald Trump is a white supremacist, an ignorant, idiotic, fucking moron, white supremacist who leads the Republican Party, which how many times have you heard me say is the largest, most effective white supremacy organization on the planet. From voter suppression to outright the celebration of killing of unarmed black men by the jackbooted armed agents of the state that we affectionately call police, who are now involved in the military occupation of Washington, D.C., and are marching through the streets, harassing, haranguing, and intimidating citizens of this country. All at the direction of Donald Trump, who didn't think slavery was all that bad. Justify it, MAGA. Make it make sense, MAGA. Love to hear from you, MAGA. You can do so in the comments. You can also call the voicemail line, 714-576-4054. And of course, as always, you can email me daily at Dollemore.com. If you want to help support this work, I would encourage that very much. You can do so on YouTube by becoming a channel member. Click the join button below the video. You can also go, more importantly and better option would be go to patreon.com/IDoubtItPodcast. They take wildly less of your contribution to help support and produce this program. You can do so there. The photo of Hegseth and his wife originally included J.D. Vance in the foreground, but he was unceremoniously cropped out of the picture. One of the reasons I've said that Pete Hegseth is going nowhere, that he can leak all the military war plans over Signal to unauthorized individuals, including journalists with no security clearance, and his wife, his little wifey poo, and his brother, his dipshit brother, who's now a Nepo baby and works there at the Pentagon. The reason he's never going to go anywhere is because he is a Trump-like figure. He is emulating Trump in every way he can, up to and including this ridiculous story that I'm going to read from at the Daily Beast and show you some photos of him decking the halls of the Pentagon with photos of himself. Some of them, him canoodling with his little wifey. The Daily Beast article really drills down on who she is, which number wife she was that he married when she was the mistress, and then what order the kids were conceived. And it's just a nightmare for a man who claims to be a mighty righteous man of God, and you should listen to him about morality while he's everything with a pulse. So here's the headline from the Daily Beast. Hegseth accidentally shows how Pentagon is full of cringe pictures of him. And we've got the receipts. I got the pictures here. We're going to show you. Pete Hegseth is apparently following Donald Trump's lead in more ways than one. A new social media video pushing a MAGA-coded fitness challenge has revealed the defense secretary has redecorated the Pentagon with photos of himself. One scene in a promotional video shows Hegseth, 45, and Robert Kennedy Jr., 71, walking through the corridors of the Pentagon. A photograph that shows Hegseth and his third wife. Oh, the sanctity of marriage is a thing to behold, is it not? His third wife, Jennifer Rochette, or Roche, we'll call her Roche, give her a fancy reading of her last name. And third wife, Jennifer Roche, is on the wall as the pair shake hands. The photo of Hegseth and his wife originally included J.D. Vance in the foreground. As I'm reading these, we'll just throw up the pictures. And you don't have to look at the at the photos. The photo of Hegseth and his wife originally included J.D. Vance in the foreground, but he was unceremoniously cropped out of the picture, which was taken by Kent Nishimura for Getty Images. Hegseth frequently rails against the, quote, mainstream media, but apparently likes their photographs. The video cuts to the two men walking down a corridor lined with more pictures of Hegseth, one inspecting what appear to be Marines, and the other saluting in front of the tomb of the unknown soldier in Arlington National Cemetery. There's also a framed poster of the mocked-up F-47 next generation stealth fighter, which was named for Trump in a sycophantic gesture. Now, you've seen some of these photos, him kissing up on his third wife. There's others in here. There's ones in this office with him and his wife, him being sworn in with his wife and gaggle of kids. It's just very Trumpian. But this, I love this. The Daily Beast really going hard here, describing the relationship and his wife. His third wife, Jennifer Roche, was a producer on Fox and Friends who became his mistress while he was married to his second wife, with whom he had 3 children. Roche, already a mother of 3, became pregnant, and after she gave birth, Hegseth had sex with a woman at a hotel in California. The woman alleged it was non-consensual, but Hegseth denied that, saying that he was simply cheating while drinking heavily. He respects marriage more than anybody. Nobody loves marriage more than Pete Hegseth and Donald Trump, who's also himself been married many, many times. Usually the new wife was the one he cheated on the earlier wife with. Christians, moral, family, values, cha-cha-cha. And then I'll end it with this. Roche has become a constant presence in the Pentagon. In March, she was included in Hegseth's second private signal group chat that shared sensitive information about military strikes in Yemen. Was a tag-along during his Senate confirmation meetings with senators in an effort to ensure that they were too uncomfortable to ask about the credible accusation that he raped that lady in that hotel in California. Apparently, senators don't want to offend the sensibilities of the third wife by asking about the woman that he raped while he was married to the third wife, who was the mistress that he cheated on the second wife with. It's all just too much for the senators. Oh, we don't want to be offensive, y'all. My good friend, the Honorable Mr. Hegseth, I couldn't put him in that position. That's my foghorn, leghorn, Southern senator voice. You like it? Anyway, look, this just bolsters my opinion. This just bolsters my assertion that there is almost nothing that he can do to get fired by Donald Trump, because he might be the heir apparent here. Every time Donald Trump is asked about J.D. Vance taking the mantle and being the next, he demurs. He says, oh, well, it's too early to say. We don't know. He's really great, but who knows? I think it's likely Pete Hegseth. Put that question to the United States people and see what they say.
Pam Bondi seems to think and seeks to have Washington State bend the knee to a Trump administration that day by day drags us closer to authoritarianism. That's not going to happen either.
If you are someone who is tired of there being a lack of fight in Democratic politicians, stick around for this one, because here is an example of how to act, of how to behave, of how to comport yourself, of how to reply when threatened with criminal charges by Pam Bondi and Donald Trump. Pam Bondi sent a letter to the governor of Washington, Bob Ferguson, threatening criminal charges, threatening arrest and prosecution, because he doesn't want to spend state dollars. It's a sanctuary state. And that means they don't want to divert desperately needed funds to support the federal government's mission with state dollars. If the federal government wants to do it, spend the money to do it. But you can't rely on the taxpayers of Washington to back an immoral measure, the terrorizing of immigrants in this country. We're witnessing on the streets of Washington, D.C. You're seeing videos of the brutality in L.A. and cities all across the country. And it's not the moral imperative, the legal imperative even, of the citizens of Washington to fund their police to take part in that. That's what sanctuary cities policies are. That's all it is we're not going to spend our money doing what the federal government tells us to do. That's not their purview. After all, states' rights, states' rights, states' rights, states' rights, 10th Amendment, 10th Amendment, 10th Amendment. The same thing you hear conservatives say when it's about COVID or about slavery or whatever, right? So here, I'm going to read 3 paragraphs from this letter from Pam Bondi to Bob Ferguson, and then I'm going to play 2 clips of Bob Ferguson absolutely in a very mild-mannered way, because he's not bombastic. He's not an asshole like me. He's a gentle speaking individual, but the words he speaks come down with a hammer. First, Pam Bondi's letter. Let me get my glasses since I'm getting old. Dear Governor Ferguson, the United States has a long history of cooperation with state and local law enforcement agencies, including for immigration enforcement. Such cooperation is vital to enforce federal law and protect national security. Recognizing that need, Congress has codified the duty of states and local governments to cooperate in immigration enforcement efforts. For too long, so-called sanctuary jurisdiction policies have undermined this necessary cooperation and obstructed federal immigration enforcement, giving aliens cover to perpetrate crimes in our communities and evade the immigration consequences that federal law requires. Under the dear leader's leadership, full cooperation by state and local governments in immigration enforcement efforts is a top priority. Skipping down to the next paragraph, as the chief law enforcement officer of the United States, I am committed to identifying state and local laws, policies, and practices that facilitate violations of federal immigration laws or impede lawful federal immigration operations, and taking legal action to challenge such laws, policies, or practices. Individuals operating under the color of law, using their official positions to obstruct federal immigration enforcement efforts and facilitating or inducing illegal immigration, may be subject to criminal charges. Page 2. Further, pursuant to the dear leader's directive, blah, 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 you are hereby notified that your jurisdiction has been identified as one that engages in sanctuary policies and practices that thwart federal immigration enforcement to the detriment of the interest of the United States. This ends now, she says in a letter from the DOJ on Department of Justice or the Attorney General letterhead. This ends now. By Tuesday, August 19th, that was yesterday, 2025, please submit a response to this letter that confirms your commitment to complying with federal law and identifies the immediate initiatives you are taking to eliminate laws, policies, and practices that impede federal immigration enforcement. This letter does not constitute final agency action, and nothing in this letter creates any right or benefit enforceable at law against the United States. A little get out of jail free card at the end there, Pam. Well, yesterday, Governor Bob Ferguson of Washington held a press conference. And again, this isn't he has a different personality and a different tack and a different style than Gavin Newsom. Bob Ferguson doesn't sit down on a podcast with Nazis. He doesn't break bread and yuck it up about how his son is a big fan of Charlie Kirk. Not with Steve Bannon either. He doesn't do that. You know, that's Gavin Newsom's style. His style is a little bit more methodical, a little bit less bombastic, a little less headline grabbing. And that's why efforts like this and videos like this are so important. If you're still here waiting to see what Bob Ferguson said, share this video, like this video, comment on this video so YouTube will share it so people will know there are other fighters out there other than Gavin Newsom, who is doing good work in that respect, pushing back against Donald Trump. It just, breaking bread with Nazis, kind of a deal breaker for me. Unless your opponent is also a Nazi or is a Nazi, then, I'm going to vote for Gavin Newsom. Anyway, here's Bob Ferguson. I got 2 clips. The first one, and then we'll follow it with the second.
I recently received a letter from U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi. I think you all have a copy of that. It purports to notify me that Washington State, and these are her words now, has been identified as a so-called sanctuary jurisdiction. That's her line. By the way, on grounds that her letter makes no effort whatsoever to explain. She refers to unidentified policies and practices within Washington State that she asserts violate federal law. Once again, without any explanation whatsoever. The letter goes on to invoke federal obstruction, conspiracy, and harboring statutes that carry criminal penalties with prison time. BONDI even threatens that state officials, including some of the folks who joined me today, by the way, just so we're clear, even threatens that state officials, and I'm quoting now from her letter, operating under the color of the law, using their official position to obstruct federal immigration enforcement efforts and facilitating or inducing illegal immigration may be subject to criminal charges. That is breathtaking. And a letter like this cannot be normalized. Let me be very clear. Washington State will not be bullied or intimidated by threats and legally baseless accusations. In the America that I love, and have taught my children to revere, we resolve our differences peacefully through public discourse, and if necessary, through the courts, not by threatening political opponents with imprisonment. Pam Bondi takes a very different approach. Her letter threatens me, police officers, state troopers, sheriffs, judges, and other officials with prison time.
See, that's the rub here. Pam Bondi's not just threatening the governor himself. She's threatening legislators. She's threatening cops. She's threatening state troopers. She's threatening anybody who's an official in Washington who has sworn an oath as a public official, as a public servant. That's what she's doing. He also explained there exactly what the sanctuary state policy is. Does it sound criminal to you? He wraps it up. It gets better. Watch this.
If Pam Bondi really believed Washington State is in conflict with controlling federal law, she would make some effort to explain that. She did not because she cannot. In 2017, I was the first state attorney general to challenge President Donald Trump's efforts to trample our Constitution in court, and I was the first attorney general to defeat him. Along with the excellent team in the Office of the Attorney General, we went on to defeat the first Trump administration 55 times in court. We were unsuccessful in just 3 cases. Given that history, I can assure you, I am prepared to defend Washington from any litigation the Trump administration wishes to pursue. If they choose to challenge me and my state, we will defeat them and seek all appropriate costs and fees. Pam Bondi seems to believe that cavalierly citing criminal statutes and personally threatening me, a democratically elected governor, will result in compromising the values of my state. That is not going to happen. Pam Bondi seems to think and seeks to have Washington State bend the knee to a Trump administration that day by day drags us closer to authoritarianism. That's not going to happen either. I am not intimidated by Pam Bondi or the president. Nobody standing behind me is intimidated by Pam Bondi or the president.
It's just threats. She's not explaining what laws have been broken. The Attorney General of the United States of America, the head of the Department of Justice, a lawyer, is not explaining what federal laws are being broken. How can they correct their behavior, Pam Bondi, if you don't explain what they're doing wrong, sister? Huh? And then finally, he says boldly, some would say bravely, we're not intimidated by you, Donald Trump. We're certainly not intimidated by you, Pam Bondi, you sycophantic bootlicking lapdog. We need more of this energy from Democrats. Unfortunately, we find ourselves in a position where governors seem to be the most strong elementally in this fight. We have a lot of bravado on the part of senators and congresspeople. Not a lot of actual action, especially in leadership. Chuck Schumer, asleep at the wheel. Hakeem Jeffries, he's working too hard to not get Mamdani elected in New York to actually do his goddamn job. I don't know. If you're looking for a fight, if you're looking for a fighter, and you're disappointed like I am, you need to let him know. In fact, Here's just another opportunity to drop the Capitol switchboard number, 202-224-3121. Call your member of Congress and demand an actual fight. Not just rhetoric, not just words, opposition. Delay, deny progress to Donald Trump and his fascist agenda, of his attack on community members of the United States, people who make our economy better, who make our country better, who strengthen us all. This is just predication to abuse more people using arbitrary language, terrorism and anti-American and what ideologies Donald Trump does or doesn't like. I hold in my hands a new policy alert from the fascist government of the United States of America under Donald Trump that is now changing the rules for immigrants, that you can be yanked, you can be abused, you can be oppressed, you could be disappeared with no due process if you commit the crime of anti-American ideologies, whatever the f*** that means under Donald Trump. The same president who's whining that museums talk too much about how bad slavery was is now determining what is anti-American ideology. The guy who thinks black people have had it too good for too long in this country, that gay people have had it too good for too long, that women, just quiet, be a trad wife, get back in the kitchen. You've had it too good for too long with your jobs and your ability to have a credit card. That's the guy who's going to determine what is an anti-American ideology. And if you don't abide by it, they're starting with immigrants now. Next on bat and cleanup here will be us. We'll be American born, American naturalized, but citizens of the United States. And your anti-American ideologies will be under threat. The things I say on a daily basis, according to Donald Trump, is anti-American ideology. Equality, inclusion, diversity, actual love of country, trying to make America better by teaching accurately what our history is. Those are anti-American ideologies, according to Donald Trump. Get a load of this policy alert. Here's the purpose. U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, USCIS, we'll just call it Immigration Services to make it easy, is updating policy guidance in the Immigration Services Policy Manual regarding the factors that officers may consider in certain benefit requests where an exercise of discretion is required, including factors relating to an alien's past requests for parole and any involvement in anti-American or terrorist organizations. Here's another one. Just because the word terrorist organizations is used, don't take it at face value. Because college students who've written op-eds in opposition to the genocide in Gaza are considered supporters of terrorist organizations if you're against the actions of Israel, of the conservative Israel government, you're involved with terrorism, according to Donald Trump. So don't just take these words at face value. For certain immigration benefit requests, such as adjustment of status, the alien bears the burden of proof to demonstrate that a favorable exercise of discretion is warranted. For these benefit requests, the discretionary analysis is a separate component of adjudicating the benefit request, which occurs after the officer determines whether all threshold eligibility requirements have been met. The act of exercising discretion involves weighing positive and negative factors and considering the totality of the circumstances in each case. There are various factors officers may consider when conducting a discretionary analysis, including facts related to an alien's conduct, character, family ties, immigration history, and any humanitarian concerns. So, here's where we are with this. This is to give them cover to make changes on the fly, arbitrary changes that don't align with the actual written, stated policy of the United States government. That's what's happening here. They're giving case agents, case officers, discretion to make calls about what's terrorism and what is not. There's a legal definition for terrorist and terrorist organization by the government in U.S. code. But they're going to be able to run roughshod, to go rogue, and make their own discretionary decision about what's anti-American ideology. Continuing here, Immigration Services guidance provides that an alien's compliance with immigration laws is a relevant factor when determining if a favorable exercise of discretion is warranted. And then this is huge. Immigration Services is updating the policy manual to provide additional guidance for officers on the significant negative discretionary weight Immigration Services assigned in certain circumstances where an alien has endorsed, promoted, supported, or otherwise espoused the views of a terrorist organization or group, including those who support or promote anti-American. Now listen, I know I'm all over the place here, but listen to this. Listen to these groups and these actions that Donald Trump is acting as though he cares about, that this administration is acting as though they care about. And while I'm reading them, I want you to remember all of the instances of masked Nazis marching in the streets with Donald Trump flags, supporting the candidacy of Donald Trump, endorsing the candidate Donald Trump for president of the United States, actual Nazis, actual anti-Semitic goons. Jews will not replace us, they wailed in Charlottesville. Remember, many fine people on both sides, including those who support or promote anti-American ideologies or activities, anti-Semitic terrorism, anti-Semitic terrorist organizations, and anti-Semitic ideologies in any case involving an exercise of discretion. And then finally, I'll read this. In cases where the alien has engaged in such activities, Immigration Services will enforce all relevant immigration laws to the maximum degree, including the use of discretion to deny the benefit request, and that would mean kicking them out of the country. Anti-Semitic? What about Islamophobic? We're only protecting Judeo-Christian elements of faith here, while Sikh communities, often referred to or pronounced Sikh, but the actual pronunciation is Sikh. Don't come for me. Do a research, look it up. I already did a video on it, and I got like 500 comments correcting me, people who were wrong. The Sikh communities in this country have been subject to assassination, abuse. Muslims obviously have been subject to abuse in this country. All kinds of other religions don't find themselves in the privileged position of protection by the United States government. If you're Christian, they're all for it. If you're a white Christian, especially. If you're a Jew, anti-Semitic, unless, of course, you're a Jew who's against the genocide in Gaza, which there are hundreds of thousands of them. This is just predication to abuse more people, using arbitrary language, terrorism and anti-American, and what ideologies Donald Trump does or doesn't like. The guy who wants our museums to stop talking about how bad slavery was is doing these policies. We're in a bad spot.
In my time in Congress, I actually helped secure the largest infrastructure grant in state history.
Nancy Mace. I mean, look, this should give you all the information you need to know about the Republican Party, that she is welcomed with open arms. She can be pro-Trump and then be a Trump opponent. Now she's pro-Trump again. It's just whatever suits her. She's an opportunist. She's a liar. She's a bigot. She's a self-promoting, clout-chasing maniac like so many in the Republican Party. Like the former Congressman Louis Gohmert or Jim Jordan or Lauren Boebert, who you don't hear much from anymore, dealing with personal issues, I guess. Marjorie Taylor Greene, all of these goons. Nancy Mace is among one of the worst, though. Now she's running for governor of South Carolina, and she's taking credit for things she voted against. Multiple times, in fact. Yesterday, she was on Newsmax. I almost said Netflix. It wasn't on Netflix. It was on Newsmax. And in this clip I'm getting ready to play for you, she brazenly is trying to convince the people of South Carolina that all of the many millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars that are being poured into the state to better the infrastructure, to ultimately, by extension, better the lives of the citizens of South Carolina, that she's responsible for that. She says it. And we're going to get to why it's so ridiculous after she says it. But just brace yourself. Just brace yourself.
In my time in Congress, I actually helped secure the largest infrastructure grant in state history, in South Carolina history. So I've worked very hard on the policies that matter to voters here. And I'm a conservative. I like Donald Trump. I believe in common sense. I'm a prolific drafter of legislation. And as governor, I'm going to bring that same energy, those same policies, that same work ethic. I mean, President Trump is a man who doesn't sleep. Yeah. And I bring that same energy to Congress, and I want to bring that to the governor's seat in South Carolina.
That's what she's touting? That's what she's bragging about? That's what she's running on? That's the record she wants South Carolina citizens to look at and say, yes, Nancy Mace got us stronger bridges and roads. She got us that money. She fought for that. I actually helped secure the largest infrastructure grant in state history, in South Carolina history. And she's worked hard, y'all, on policies that matter to voters here. Not policies that matter like, oppressing transgender kids. Not shaking someone's hand and then, oh, my arm is broke, y'all. Oh, that transgender terrorist broke my hand. And nothing came from that. She's a liar, right? So what she's talking about here, this fighting for this largest grant in infrastructure, is the INVEST Act, the infrastructure bill that was so seminal, a seminal piece of legislation in Joe Biden's in his administration, his term, the only term. So let's just revisit so you know what we're talking about here. This is from the House Transportation and Infrastructure Committee. How are we investing in America, they say. The Invest in America Act is a comprehensive legislation that would modernize our roads, bridges, transit, rail, drinking water, and wastewater infrastructure, and so much more. The transformational bill would move our country away from the status quo and would lay the groundwork for an infrastructure package for the modern era. Modern infrastructure means creating millions of good-paying jobs that rebuild the middle class and make our country more competitive in global economy, combating the climate crisis by cutting carbon pollution from the transportation sector and addressing long-standing inequities in communities around the country with investment that makes cities and towns safer and more connected. We can do this. In fact, we can't afford not to. It's from the committee, the House Committee on Transportation and Infrastructure. So why? Of course she's going to brag about getting that done, right? Of course she's going to tout that record. Look, I did this for you, South Carolina. I worked hard for you. I put my ass on the line to go against Donald Trump and the Republicans and vote for this bill. I couldn't even finish. That's not what happened. So let's go to the clerk of the House. We'll go right to the record here. Clerk of the House, roll call. 369, bill number HR 3684, Invest in America Act. Status passed. Votes 228 to 206. It passed. What are your guesses? Place your bets now, folks. The wheel's getting ready to turn. It's my roulette here. Place your bets. Place your bets. Did Nancy Mace vote yes or no? Oh, time's up. Yeah, she voted no. She voted no on the same bill that she's on Newsmax saying that she helped pass, that she helped secure the largest infrastructure grant in the state history. Unfortunately for the people of South Carolina, she voted no on the largest infrastructure grant in state history. She tried to get it to not pass. She tried to tank it. And now she's out there taking credit for it. And it's not the first time. You'll remember this from the beginning of the month. I think it was the 6th or the 7th of August, where a reporter was asking her these questions. Hey, listen, I listened to your stump speech here, running for governor. I listened to you. And you're claiming credit for something you voted against. And that is where this clip picks up.
So I, of course, would vote against a bill that did something outrageous like that. But when there's money being appropriated by the federal government, it is literally our job to make sure that we help organizations, government entities, state and local, get those appropriations by supporting them with letters of support. And that's what my office says. That's literally part of the job of being a member of Congress. And maybe you're confused. Okay. You're very confused. And you're a raging Democrat, so raging leftist with that kind of questioning. And I would say as a woman, like, you might want to think about how you view other women and how you treat other women, the way that you question them, because women are going to lead this country off the brink, and conservative women. The first female president of this country is going to be a conservative woman, not some liberal like you.
Okay, again, just a question about the bill, whether you voted for it or not, what you're touting.
This is literally the job of a member of Congress. You might want to look up what a member of Congress does, and maybe read the Constitution next time before asking me such a question.
Okay.
5 times over.
Just looking for clarification in the question.
You clearly need it.
Okay.
Pick up a Constitution and read it.
All right.
Your last question.
You were one of the...
Make it good.
You were one of the...
How many lies can be told to an electorate before they start waking up? And of course, I'm talking about MAGA here. I'm talking about South Carolina voters who earnestly, even Republicans who earnestly want their state to be run well. There's people out there who are Republican who want it done right, who are just misguided or don't understand or don't pay enough attention to the news or the actual records of their politicians. And they need to know. Nancy Mace didn't do this. Nancy Mace is taking credit for a Democratic initiative that now the effects are so wildly popular, that are so wildly beneficial to the country, to the state of South Carolina, that she's taking credit for it. But she wasn't smart enough or forward-looking enough to vote for it. And the reason is because she's not trying to look into the future. She's just trying to do whatever Donald Trump wants her to do. And Donald Trump just doesn't want to give a Democrat a win on anything. That's why he scuttled, he trashed, he tanked the immigration bill that was sure to pass in the House and the Senate. But he didn't want him to give Joe Biden a win before the election. And then we all know how that worked out. Here we are with a mass deportation effort, with masked secret police, armed agents of the state, harassing and intimidating American citizens and immigrants alike. Nancy Mace, Republican Party, Donald Trump, a danger to the Republic, traitors to their oath to the Constitution of the United States. What are your thoughts on this? I invite you to this conversation. We can have it below in the comments, wherever you're watching this video. You can also call the voicemail line, 714-576-4054. Of course, you can email me, as always, daily@dollemore.com. If you're still here, thank you for still being here. Go follow us on Facebook. I just created a Facebook page for the Dollemore Daily where you can natively share this content, natively meaning not a YouTube link, but straight from Facebook. We're trying to get as much support for the truth and for candidates out there and for information about the damage that Donald Trump is doing. And Facebook suppresses links, and they really love to share their own content that is on the platform. So go follow the Facebook page. We're trying to get to 10,000 followers. I think I got 1.8 million, 1.18, 1.2 million here on on YouTube. I'm sure we can get to 10,000. We could do it in a day if everybody goes and does it. Anyway, I love and appreciate you very much. I will see you next time. Until then, be genuine, be less like Nancy Mace, and more like someone who loves their country. Be genuine. Take care of one another.